we're going to reflect this triangle over line L here using a straight edge and a note card in this construction rather than a compass. So this is not a traditional construction, but we're using the note card in this case because it gives us access to a really nice feature, which is a free right angle right here that we'll take advantage of to make some perpendicular lines. Okay, so remember that the big concept behind the reflection is that every point in the pre-image is going to travel on a line that is perpendicular to the line of reflection, and it's going to travel a distance that's equal to how far it is currently away from the line of reflection. So x prime will be located some equal distance over here perpendicularly away. Alright, and that's where our card is going to come into play, because that's going to allow us to draw our perpendicular lines really easily, as long as you have a nice clean, crisp note card like this. And really anything works that has a right angle. You can use a piece of printer paper, honestly, but note cards or some thicker, construction paper is nice because you have a nice edge you can draw across there. Printer paper is just a little bit difficult to trace across. Okay, so to begin with, we're just going to construct a line that's perpendicular to line L through our first pre-image point X. And to do that, we're going to take the note card and line up one edge along the line of reflection, and the other edge we're going to want to intersect the point that we're going to reflect. Now, this is one of those cases where it's pretty important to just spend a few extra seconds and just make sure it's lined up nicely, because the less perpendicular this line is, the less your result is going to look like a reflection. It's going to be skewed a little bit, things are going to be kind of moved around, so in this case, it's worth it to spend a few extra seconds just to make sure everything's lined up. You're going to be much happier with the result you get when you do that. So once I have everything lined up here, I'm just going to draw a light line along this edge here and making sure that I intersect point X. Okay. Now the problem is that I need that line to actually continue this way to find where X prime is, but my note card ran out, and I need this corner to be here so I get that right angle. So you might be tempted to freehand. Please don't do that. You're kind of missing the entire point of doing a construction. So you can either use your note card and just kind of slide it along and again line it back up again and continue that line. I like to use my straight edge in this case just because it's a little bit of a better edge to draw across, and the less often that I draw across the note card, the better that edge remains. So just go ahead and extend that line, and making sure you go far enough that it's going to be at least far enough that X prime will be located. So this gives us the perpendicular line that X is going to travel across. So that's the first part of the reflection. And then for the second part, to measure the distance from the line of reflection to X, you could literally measure. Okay, if you are going to measure with a ruler, I usually recommend measuring with centimeters and millimeters, or just a little bit more precise because you have more precision with those millimeters. However, one of the nice things about geometry is you never should technically have to measure in a unit. You make everything kind of relative to something else. And in this case, I don't really care how many centimeters away this is or millimeters. All I need to know is that I can copy this exact distance over here. Right? So it doesn't matter what the number is, as long as I can know exactly things that are equal. And so to do that, again, we're just going to use the note card. So we're going to line it up nicely and get that square in that corner there, and make sure that one edge is a long line of reflection. And so the distance along this edge out to where point X is the exact distance we're going to need to copy onto this side here. So again, you can either rotate this card around if you want to and get this corner back in the other corner there, but honestly the direction of this distance doesn't matter, it's the same distance. And so you can just slide the note card along then until that X mark lines up with your line of reflection, and then the distance from that X mark back to the end is that same distance. So that can give you where X prime is located, where these two sides, or those two segments should be equal. Okay, so this is a fairly simple process. Again, just take a few extra seconds and make sure things are lined up. Make sure you're drawing carefully across that note card. They tend to move if you try to go quickly, and you don't have to draw dark. Alright, so just don't put a lot of pressure on there. Just a nice light line. Make sure you intersect the point you want to reflect. Okay, and again, just make sure it's nice and lined up so you get a good crisp 90-degree angle. And then use your straight edge to extend that line. And making sure you go far enough that you'll be able to copy that distance over. And then using one edge of your note card, again, line it back up to the line of reflection. Oops. And the distance from that corner way out to, make sure I'm on that point, there. That's out to point Y, and so I just copy that distance along the other side of the line. Y prime. And then finally point Z. You might be tempted to freehand it again. It's worth it just to do it properly. It doesn't take very long. Line it up. One line through point Z perpendicular and then extend it. Alright, and then copy the distance by lining one edge up to your line of reflection and then along the other edge out to the point that we copy the distance of. Slide your note card, and at that corner, that's where, oops, that's going to be inside the triangle. That's where Z prime is. And there we go. Now we just reconnect our points. And there we have a reflection constructed with a note card and a straight edge. And really technically, we could have just constructed this whole thing with a note card and used our note card as our straight edge too. So we could have actually called this just a note card construction. And there you have it.